Many of you will watch American TV shows or films that involve a scene of a police officer pulling over a vehicle, and a driver will very often say, "What is your reason for pulling me over? You need probable cause." Because in the United States, police officers need what they call probable cause, which is our equivalent of reasonable grounds for suspicion, which is unbiased before they can pull over a vehicle. And many of you, with great respect, will mistakenly think that that applies in the United Kingdom as well. But that is not quite the case. And that's what I'm talking about today. But if you're new to me and my channel, I'm a barrister who helps you understand law. So please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And you can also join me for live streams on Sunday at 10 AM UK time, and I answer your questions in the comments over at Black Belt Secrets, my sister channel, linked below. But if you want to get in touch with me directly and informally, you can reach me on Instagram. So the position in the United Kingdom is very different to that in the United States. Section 163 of the Road Traffic Act 1988 provides police officers the power to stop any vehicle without any particular reason, and the wording of this section of the Act is very clear. Section 163 provides that a person driving a mechanically propelled vehicle on a road must stop the vehicle on being required to do so by a constable in uniform or a traffic officer. A traffic officer may include one of those cars you see going up and down the motorway. They may look very much like police, but they are designated traffic officers, and the same powers apply. And the same is true for cycles as well. Subsection 2 provides that a person riding a cycle on a road must stop the cycle on being required to do so by a constable in uniform or a traffic officer. And under subsection 3, if you fail to comply with such a request, you will be guilty of an offence. So this kind of stop is typically known as being pulled over. You can be pulled over by a police car flashing blue lights at you. You can be pulled over by a police officer waving you down, standing in uniform in the street. At various times of the year, typically at Christmas and New Year, there are usually various campaigns, such as drink drive campaigns, where they are pulling over vehicles to speak to the driver, where there'll be a designated area that police officers pull cars over for the purposes of speaking to the driver to try to ascertain whether or not the driver has been drinking. If the officer forms the reasonable suspicion that the driver is under the influence of drink, then there could be more serious consequences. Other instances may be referred to as a stop check. This is where police officers are simply pulling over random vehicles to check the overall safety of the vehicle, such as the tyres, lights, and so on. If the officer were to find something wrong with your vehicle, such as a bald tyre, you may well be given a fixed penalty. Or for something more minor, you may be given what's known as a VDRS, which is the Vehicle Defect Rectification Scheme. In other words, if there is something minor wrong with your car, such as a cracked light, or one of the lights isn't working, or one of the indicators isn't working, or something of this nature, the police officer may not think that it's serious enough to give you a fixed penalty, by way of a fine and perhaps points, and instead give you the opportunity to correct this problem, and then go to the police station within 14 days with evidence that this has been corrected. This is usually done by going to a garage, and the garage can sign or give you something to prove that you've had the work done. And then you take this VDRS slip to a police station to prove that you've had the work done. But that's not the full extent of what might happen if a police officer pulls your vehicle over to the side of the road. One thing that is similar to the United States, and ironically something that I've heard many people say is not the case in the UK, is that police officers can require you to produce your driving licence, and in some instances your date of birth. And failure to provide either your driving licence or your date of birth also amounts to an offence, although there is a defence to failing to provide your driving licence there and then if you do so within 7 days. This is usually by taking it to a police station and often referred to as a producer. And the power to require drivers to produce their driving licence and date of birth is found in Section 164 of the Road Traffic Act 1988. And as you might have guessed, this is not limited to the driving licence, it also extends to your insurance information, which is in Section 165. And again, failure to provide evidence of your insurance will amount to an offence. But again, there is a defence under subsection 4 that if you provide this within 7 days, you shall not be convicted of failure to provide your insurance information. Section 165 also requires the driver to provide the name and address of the owner of the vehicle. And of course, it goes without saying that if you do not have a valid driving licence and or you do not have valid insurance documentation, then these may well lead to further prosecutions for driving without a licence or driving without insurance. And in some circumstances, with very specific specific requirements under sections 165A and 165B, the police can seize vehicles that are being driven or have been driven without a license or insurance. However, it's important to understand that you are not under arrest just because the police has pulled your vehicle over, at least unless you fail to pull over, and then you may well be arrested. But you and your vehicle are being detained under section 163 and the police officer's power to stop a vehicle. So if you are not under arrest but you are being detained and you're required to pull over, otherwise you are guilty of an offence, what else must you do after you've pulled your vehicle over to the side of the road? Well, as the law requires you to pull over when required to do so and to provide the information when asked to do so, and it is a defence to do so within 7 days, and provided that you have or will comply with those requests, there is generally no additional obligation for you to turn off the engine, hand the keys to the driver, get out of the vehicle, and so on. And there have been cases, such as the example described in the blog post, which I will link below, written by a solicitor who brings claims against the police for alleged wrongdoings during such a stop. But again, as I often say on this channel, civil cooperation, including with the police, can often go a long way, but it is also important to remember that there are limits as to what you are required to do by law. And beyond that, simply refusing to cooperate with unreasonable requests does not necessarily mean that you are guilty of an offence, and may actually lead to an actionable claim against the police. For example, if you are physically dragged out of the vehicle because you refuse to get out of the vehicle, when the law didn't require you to do so. But again, every case is very fact specific, and if there was simply one fact in any particular case that gave the officer reasonable grounds to lead to the arrest of the driver, then obviously his refusal to cooperate is going to be detrimental. But in many cases, the law can be very complex, and with the greatest respect to all of you guys watching, finding any specific defence or any specific requirement what you are or are not required to do by law, else you commit an offence, can be very difficult. This is ultimately why I say you should always seek formal legal advice, because you may not know that you have a defence in a specific situation and find yourself pleading guilty to something where otherwise you would have a very valid defence. But as the law has now become so very vast and complex, that is the very reason I have created this channel, to try to make a dent in the understanding for all of you guys watching. It cannot be comprehensive, it cannot be legal advice, but at least I hope it gives you some broad understanding of what is or is not required in a broad general scenario. I generally don't give my views on anything, and when I do, we may not always agree, and that's fine. I hope you enjoy the content nonetheless, and I enjoy reading your comments all the same. So please leave your questions and comments below, join me on live streams on Sunday, and jump over to Black Belt Secrets, because I can get to more of your questions there in question and answer style videos. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.